My cousin kept leaving her kids with me without asking, so I installed a Ring doorbell and started ignoring the door. She sent me a message asking why I wasn't answering. I replied, because you didn't ask permission first. I thought that would be enough, until her son called me, scared and alone, saying his mom never came back. For context, I'm 41 years old and live on the outskirts of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm a single mother of 2 kids, ages 12 and 9. My life is busy but manageable. Or at least it was, until my cousin Lila decided I was her personal babysitter. Lila is the daughter of my mother's sister, and we were pretty close growing up. But while I matured, got a stable job, and focused on raising my children, Lila went from one crisis to another. She had 3 kids with her ex, a guy more interested in beer and video games than being a father. After they separated, she moved back to our hometown, and that's when my life started to get a whole lot more complicated. At first, I didn't mind helping her. I knew she was going through a rough time, and I understood. Being a single mom is hard. She would ask me to watch the kids so she could go to job interviews, and I said yes. Sometimes she'd come over for dinner and I'd send her home with leftovers. But over time, the emergencies became more frequent, until they weren't even emergencies anymore. It started off innocently enough. She'd send me a message early in the morning like, "Hey, I have a doctor's appointment. Can you watch the kids for an hour?" I'd say yes, no problem. Then she started texting me last minute about things she had to do, but wouldn't come back for hours. Once, she dropped off the kids for a bit and didn't return until 9 at night. I had to feed them, bathe them, and put them to bed. Even my own kids asked me, why are they always here? I should have set boundaries earlier, but I let it slide. I kept telling myself she was just going through a rough patch and needed time to stabilize. But deep down, I knew what was happening. She wasn't trying to fix her life. She was offloading her responsibilities because it was easier than facing them herself. The final straw came one Wednesday afternoon in April. I had just gotten home from work, exhausted. My boss had been on my back all day, and I had a terrible headache. My kids were at the kitchen table doing homework, and I was finally taking a moment to breathe. I had a cup of coffee in my hand and was about to sit down when the doorbell rang. It was Lila, standing there with her youngest in her arms and the other 2 already running through my yard. She looked at me and said, "I have something to do, I'll be back in a couple of hours." That was it, no explanation, no asking if I was busy, just, "I have something to do." I stood there stunned. Before I could say a word, she placed the baby in my arms and turned back toward her car. I called out to her, but she didn't stop, just waved like this was totally normal. Her kids ran into my house, and I stood in the doorway in shock. My coffee got cold as I tried to process what had just happened. That night, after dealing with 5 kids for hours, I sat down at my computer. I was furious. Not just with her, but with myself. How did I let it get this far? I have my own kids to take care of. I have my own life. Why did I let her treat me like a doormat? I started reading articles about setting boundaries. I ended up on Reddit, reading posts about toxic family members, and one comment stuck with me, "You have to stop saying yes. If you don't, they'll keep taking advantage of you." That was the moment I decided I'd had enough. The next morning, I ordered a Ring doorbell. It arrived 2 days later, and I installed it over the weekend. I didn't say anything to Lila. I wanted to see how long it would take for her to show up unannounced again. It didn't take long. The following Tuesday, a little after 5 in the afternoon, I was still in my work clothes, making dinner while my kids argued over who got the last bag of chips. The doorbell rang, and my phone lit up with the Ring notification. I opened the app, and there she was, standing at my door. She wasn't alone. Her 3 kids were with her, and one of them was holding a plastic bag full of clothes. I didn't open the door. I didn't even move. I just watched as she knocked, first gently, then harder. "Hey, I know you're home," she shouted, leaning like she was trying to see through the door. "Your car's in the driveway." She knocked again, and one of her kids complained, "Mom, I'm hungry." My phone buzzed. A message from her, "Why aren't you answering? I can see the living room light is on." I didn't respond. Instead, I muted my phone, went back to the kitchen, and kept stirring the spaghetti sauce like nothing was happening. My heart was pounding. I wasn't used to ignoring people, especially family, but I was determined to stand my ground. Lila stayed on the porch for at least 10 minutes, pacing back and forth. She tried calling me, but I let it go to voicemail. Eventually, she left, furious, yelling at her kids to get in the damn car. I felt a twinge of guilt, but I pushed it aside. That night, she sent a stream of messages. What the hell, Rachel? Why didn't you answer? I needed you to watch the kids for a couple hours. It's not that big of a deal. Are you mad at me or what? I'm your cousin. Family is supposed to help each other. I didn't reply to any of them. The next morning, she called me while I was at work. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Her message had a tone that was half angry, half fake sweet. She said she just wanted to talk and that I was being too dramatic. Then she added, if you're mad, just say so. Don't play these games. When I didn't answer, she escalated. She called my mom. I should have seen it coming. My mother has always had a soft spot for Lila, and when Lila told her version of events, my mom called me, upset. Rachel, why didn't you open the door? Lila said she was in a bind yesterday. You know how hard things are for her. I know, Mom, I said, trying to stay calm. But Lila doesn't ask for help. She just shows up and expects me to drop everything for her. She's family, my mom said, as if that explained everything. Exactly. And because she's family, she should respect me enough to ask, instead of treating me like a free babysitter. I can't keep doing this, Mom. My mom sighed. I knew she didn't agree with me. But for the first time, I didn't back down. And that night, when I checked my phone one last time, I saw one final message from Lila. If you're not going to help me, I'll find someone who will. Don't expect me to be there when you need something. I stared at it for a moment. She wasn't just mad because I said no, she was trying to manipulate me into giving in. But I didn't. I spent the night staring at my phone, rereading that message filled with arrogance and manipulation. She really thought I was the one in the wrong, that it was my duty to keep letting her take advantage of me. And the worst part? She didn't care about her own kids. She just didn't want the hassle of finding someone else to be their mom for her. Then a question hit me. Where did those kids go when I didn't open the door? It wasn't a wild guess. If Lila was that used to dropping her kids off without asking, what did she do when I wasn't available? Did she leave them alone? Leave them with anyone who'd take them? My stomach turned. What if that child hadn't called me? He was scared. Alone. Because his mom just never came back. She had left them somewhere and didn't even bother to make sure they were okay. I wrestled with it for days. I didn't want to believe my cousin was that irresponsible. But the truth was undeniable. She wasn't a mother, she was just a woman who had kids and saw them as a burden. I had to do something. But I couldn't just take on a responsibility that wasn't mine. My life was already hard enough with my own kids. I was exhausted. So exhausted. So I did what I had to do. The following week, I called Child Protective Services. I explained the whole situation in detail. I said a single mother was abandoning her kids constantly, leaving them unsupervised, with no planning, without even making sure they were safe. I told them that when I stopped taking the kids, one of them had called me, terrified, because their mom never came back. They listened carefully. They asked for the children's ages, how often this happened, and whether I had any evidence. I told them about the Ring camera. About the videos showing Lila banging on the door, shouting, trying to force her way in. I told them about the messages and calls. The child protection agent went quiet for a moment, then said, "This is very serious. We're going to investigate." And they did. In less than a week, Lila received an unexpected visit. They went to her house and asked her about the kids' daily routine. They asked direct questions about where the kids had been in the past few days, who they spent time with. Of course, Lila lied. Of course, she tried to make everything seem normal. But the problem was that she wasn't smart enough to keep her lies straight. The kids were dirty. The house was a mess. When they asked about school, they found out the little ones had missed many days without excuse. And when they pushed harder, one of the kids told the truth. He said that sometimes his mom left and didn't come back. That they went hungry. That they had slept in strangers' homes. That was enough for social services to act immediately. When Lila realized things were slipping out of her control, she panicked. She called my mother, screaming and crying, saying someone was trying to ruin her life. And my mother, as always, believed her. I got the call in the middle of the afternoon. "Rachel, what did you do?" My mother's voice was full of fury. "How could you do this to your cousin?" "I did what was right, Mom." "What was right?" She laughed bitterly. "You reported her to social services. Now they're going to take her kids away. And you think that's unfair?" I replied, trying to contain my anger. "Do you think it's okay for a mother to abandon her children? To leave them with anyone? To have them without food and without safety?" She went silent for a moment. She was going through a hard time. Going through a hard time doesn't justify neglect. "She's family, and those children are family too," I shouted, unable to hold it in. "And what if something had happened to them? If one of them had gotten hurt? If someone had harmed them? Could you live with that guilt?" Because I couldn't. I tried to help her. I did everything I could. But Lila never wanted to change. She just wanted to dump her responsibilities on me. My mother started crying. But for the first time, I didn't care, because I was right. The last thing I heard before hanging up was my mother, sobbing, saying, "You destroyed our family." But I knew the truth. I didn't destroy anything. I just refused to keep holding up a lie. The next day, Lila sent me a message, "I hate you. I will never forgive you for this. You ruined my life." I stared at her words for a moment and finally replied, "No. You ruined your own life." Then I blocked her number. Later I found out that the kids had been placed in a foster home. Social services tried to locate the father, but he had no interest in taking care of them. He was just as useless as Lila. Eventually, they found a good foster family for the children. As for Lila, well, she spent some time fighting in court, trying to regain custody. But it didn't last long. With no stable job, no proper housing, no proof that she could care for her own children, she lost the case quickly. The last I heard of her, she had moved to another city with a new boyfriend. She never contacted me again. My mother didn't speak to me for months. When she finally did, she was still resentful, but never mentioned what had happened. Deep down, I think she knew I was right. But she didn't want to admit it. And I went on with my life. Was it cruel? Maybe. Was it necessary? Without a doubt. The days that followed were complete chaos. After Lila lost custody of her kids, the news spread through the family like wildfire. And just as I expected, I became the villain of the story. The phone calls started almost immediately. First it was my mother, but since I had already heard her once, I let it go to voicemail. Then came the uncles, the aunts, even distant cousins who never spoke to me, but who suddenly decided they had the right to an opinion. "How could you do this, Rachel? She's your cousin, your family. You ruined her life." And every one of those messages only made me more sure that I had done the only right thing. But the worst was still to come. Lila was not the type to accept defeat quietly. Since she was never someone to take responsibility for her actions, she did what she did best, turn others into her enemies. She started telling everyone that I had always been jealous of her, that I did it out of spite. That I reported her because I'm a bitter person who can't stand seeing others happy. One day, an aunt, the same one who never remembered to send me a birthday message, called me furious. "Selfish witch. You did it. You made Lila lose everything. I hope you're satisfied." Funny how no one seemed to care that she had already lost her children long before this. Those kids had been neglected for years. And all I did was stop turning a blind eye. No one wanted to face the reality, because admitting the truth meant acknowledging that I wasn't the one who failed Lila. It was her own family. And then the threats began. At first, they were just indirect, passive-aggressive comments on social media, anonymous hate messages. But then things got out of hand. One morning, I went outside to leave for work and found my trash cans overturned, bags ripped open, garbage scattered all over the yard. Days later, someone threw eggs at my front door. I knew exactly who was behind it. Lila might be irresponsible and lazy, but when it comes to manipulating people, she's a genius. She must have played the victim, crying and screaming to anyone who would listen that her evil cousin ruined her life, that now she was alone with nothing, a poor mother unjustly punished. And then came the relatives ready to avenge her. One day I was at the supermarket and saw a group of family members on the other side of the aisle. As soon as they saw me, the looks of disgust were immediate. One of them, someone I barely even knew, pulled out her phone, and I'm sure she messaged Lila, because minutes later my phone buzzed. It was a message from her. "I hope you're satisfied. But remember, someday you'll need help too. And when that day comes, no one will be there for you." I could feel the venom in every word. But you know what the most shocking thing was? I didn't feel anything. Because in that moment, I realized I never had anyone when I needed help. No one was there for me when I was raising my kids alone, trying to balance work and motherhood. No one showed up at my door to offer help. But when Lila, the same parasite as always, had to face the consequences of her own actions, suddenly everyone came together to defend her. That's when I decided to cut ties once and for all. I blocked everyone who sent me hateful messages. I unfollowed relatives on social media. I wasn't going to waste another second trying to justify myself to people who only saw what they wanted to see. My mother tried to reach out a few times, but the conversations were always the same. She never said I was right. She never acknowledged that Lila was a mess who endangered her own kids. The only thing she repeated was, "You should have handled it differently." Differently? I spent years putting up with this. Years letting Lila take advantage of me, treat me like a free babysitter, leave her kids with me whenever she pleased. How many more chances was I supposed to give her? How many more times was I supposed to stay silent? The most absurd part of all this is that if I had reported a stranger for child neglect, people would have praised me. But because it was family, suddenly the crime disappears and becomes a simple mistake. Well, I don't play that game. And when everything finally calmed down, when the hate messages stopped and the indirect attacks faded, I sat alone in my living room and let everything settle in my head. I didn't regret a thing. I thought about the kids. But I also thought about myself. For the first time, I did something for me, for my peace, for my stability. I'm not anyone's babysitter. I'm not the solution to anyone's problems. And if I had to do it all over again, I would do it exactly the same way.